Hey friends, Luke Ramey here with Be Good People Show, and yet again another week, and we are doing an audio-only broadcast this week, but that is coming to an end. We're hoping within the next couple weeks to be back in the studio together doing these episodes, and we're really getting into the final weeks of looking at Ezra Klein's Why We're Polarized. I hope you've been reading it along with us, because these last few chapters are the ones that really get into the grit of what do we do now. We know where we've been, we know where we are now. Now, what do we do, and how do we operate within this system we've created that's so polarized? How do we try to get out of that? Do we try to work within it? Looking at those things, these last few chapters. And so we've got 2 more weeks of this book, and then we will close it down and move on to something different. And we're not going to jump into another book right away. We've decided we're actually going to, up until the election, not focus on looking at a book, but just looking at some topical stuff week to week, because there's just so much going on. So we hope you'll join us for that. One of the things I wanted to mention, we've been doing, and I make snide capitalistic plugs for our Patreon site all the time. And what we want to do is we've really been trying to create a community of people that are interested in being active in their societies, to be good people in their societies, to evaluate the things that are going on and make good decisions moving forward that are best for the community and best for the individual. And so that's what we've wanted to do from the beginning. We wanted to create this community, and we thought maybe Podbean's Patreon account, that might be a way to do it, raise some funds to do some events, pay some expenses, and also cultivate that community, but it's just turned out to not be. And so we're actually going to say goodbye to our patron program over on Podbean. So if you've been a part of that, that'll be canceling this week. You'll get a little notification about it. But I do want to say that we have not abandoned the desire to create community, and we've found what we believe is a better place to do that. And so we've launched our Discord this week. We launched it with a couple of our patron community members just to see how it was working. It seems to be going well, and so we are launching that fully for everybody. We've got a Discord. Now, the only way you can get to be a part of our Discord is to get an invite. You do not have to be a paid subscriber of anything to get this invite, but we'll post an invite every single week, a link to it in our YouTube channel, but the link's only good for 24 hours. So if after that you want to join our patron account and you weren't able to, you can reach out to us. You can either email us, hit us up on social media, and we can send you over a link so you can be a part of it. You can also get invited by other members of our Discord. We'd love for you to do that. Now, on this new Discord, there is going to be an opportunity through Patreon to become a part of our community in a bigger way. Now, we used to have scaled, anywhere from $2 a week or $2 a month to $23 a month is what we used to do, but we're not doing that anymore. It's a flat $8 a month, and you get to be a part of some of our patron-only activities, and that includes some video chats online, which we get to do through Discord. And then there's going to be some blog posting that we've got from us and other members of our patron community that we're going to be posting. And then also some live events coming up in the future where we're going to actually get together once the world has return to a place where it's safe to do so. But anyway, we just wanted to throw that out there to let you know. We would love for you to connect with us on Discord. It's the best place to continue this conversation. YouTube comments are fine. You can always send us stuff over social media. A lot of you guys send direct messages. We appreciate that. We love that. Continue to do it. But if you want to plug in to the best place to discuss these things further after the episode, it's our Discord. And so we'd love to have you there. Click the link. If you're within the first 24 hours of this posting, click that link to join. It's completely free to join. If you miss out on it, if it tells you that you can't join because the link has expired, reach out to us individually, and we will get you a link to be a part of the community. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, as we wrap up Ezra Klein, there's an audio-only episode here. You can get it anywhere podcasts are, but if you're here on YouTube today, you can listen to it right here. Now, I actually, for this one, was a little bit more difficult, and I had to do a phone call-in from 1982. That's how bad my audio is. So forgive me for that. It is good content, though. I did enjoy the conversation with Curtis. It was a good week. So we hope you'll stay plugged in, reach out to us, questions, comments. Always interested in the conversation. Thanks. Hey, everybody. This is Luke Ramey.
Curtis Looper.
And Curtis Looper here with Be Good People Show, and we're happy that you chose to join us again. We are a few episodes deep. I don't know how many in this book, but this book not a long read.
No,
but a lot of stuff in it.
We really dragged this one out.
Well, we did drag it out, but I think because we make jokes about that because we spent way more time on this one than we did the last book.
Yeah.
But this one is just so relevant to what's going on right now, especially being an election year. This is just very, very relevant. All of this stuff speaks to moment by moment that we're going through. So I'm happy to do it.
Yeah. And we've talked to, I've had some conversations with people. It's where do I even start to look at, how to break down some of this stuff? Some of the stuff is so complicated. And this book seems to be a really good, starting point. And he refers to a bunch of books. So if you wanted to, deepen your knowledge of how to be politically engaged, it's a great self-starter.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. So Curtis, this week as we dive into it, we're chapter 8 is kind of what we're talking about. We're talking about that one. And personally, I would say I'm a Minnesotan.
Yeah.
If you talk to me, I'd say it all the time that I'm a Minnesota boy. It's who I am. I'm from Minnesota. I've lived in Tennessee for 16 years or something crazy.
It's been a while, yeah.
I know, but I identify myself as a Minnesotan. That's who I am first. That's who I think of myself to be, is a Minnesotan. I don't generally claim Dakota County in Minnesota. I don't claim that, but I do claim Minnesota. Now, how about you? Do you claim Fitchers County? Fitchers County boy? Is that?
No, I mean, I live in Cookeville. So, and more specifically, in the street that I live on is a little outside of Cookeville city limits. So even then, to say that I'm Cookvillian.
Yeah.
Cookvillian. Cookvillian. I was thinking the same thing, which probably means that's how shoddy that is, but yeah. So more specifically, I guess I would be a Putnam County resident,
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's kind of what he's talking about in this. What was the name of this chapter? I should have that pulled up.
Yeah, I don't have that.
When bipartisanship becomes irrational.
Yeah.
So,
but he talked a little bit about identity, who we are first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There was that section there, and I might be jumping ahead from what you kind of looked at, but I remember he was talking about, do you consider yourself an American first? When you're identifying yourself, and I don't. I wouldn't. An American wouldn't be my first identity.
Yeah.
I would consider myself locally. You know what I mean?
I think
and I say I'm a Minnesota boy. I'll always claim that, but I'm Cookeville. I'm Cookvillian. You know what I mean? I live here. This is where I work and live in the city.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? And so I would claim that, and I care more about what's happening in Cookeville than I care about what's happening in the country. To be honest.
Yeah, and that seems to be you might be in the minority in that because it's definitely I guess we can start at the end and work backwards. Everyone knows that the system is kind of broken.
Yeah.
How is it broken when it has worked, for 200 plus years? And how did we get here? And how do we get out of it? You know what I mean? And he was talking about how the founding fathers, for the most part, could not imagine a situation where our political system is a battleground between like two nationalized parties. It was supposed to be like, however many districts and cities and states all being represented, like it's a
Yeah.
representative democracy,
Yeah.
rather than a boxing ring where the executive branch and the House are fighting battles every 2 years or every 4 years to try to control the judicial branch, which kind of assume the power of constitutional interpretation and being able to slap down laws as unconstitutional. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Well, and I mean, if you think about it, size has a lot to do with it. I mean,
Yeah.
just like physical size of our country has
Uh-huh.
grown since our founding fathers.
Yeah.
And even more than our physical size, our population has
Population.
grown.
Yeah.
And so if you just look at, and honestly, the way I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, or whoever, correct me if I'm wrong, but like when I think about the United States, post Revolutionary War, founding of the country, it was like hey, we did it. All right, we're all going back home.
Yeah.
And we're going to do what we do, where we do it. And then we'll get together every now and again and make sure we're on the same page or get ourselves on the same page on a regular basis to make sure this is working.
It was much more like a EU setup than what we see right now. And you're right, Revolutionary War, he said right after the Civil War is when you start seeing in the literature of the like American identity rather than the Tennessean or the Oklahoman. I don't I don't know all these. You don't even know the words now,
Yeah, exactly.
I don't. It's not common knowledge for the most part, unless you're like real specific in there. But
and I think that's something to be said. Like you said, well, Ezra Klein said it at Civil War is really when we started having that more national pride versus our local or state pride. And I think that's a huge difference. You know what I mean? When people went home from the Revolutionary War, they're like, yeah, this is what we did together, but now I'm going to go do my thing where I do my thing with my people, and we don't have that much anymore. And it probably has a lot to do with one, population density, and then two, obviously we've got borders to protect and we're in a much more volatile society and people are more mobile, than they've ever been before globally. And I mean, we're just all connected by information more. And so I'm sure all those things are contributing factors.
Yeah, it's interesting that it started around World War I because that's when like the national mindset happened across the world. We were represented in the world stage as Americans. There were still divisions from different states and whatnot. But the Civil War as well. I mean, that was kind of a unifying moment, and then it was only strengthened by the World Wars. But he points specifically, we're in this dynamic right now because our political parties have been nationalized, and that's almost a factor. Well, largely a factor from our news being nationalized.
Yeah, it's true.
Back in the day, you didn't have political podcasts like you do now. The cable news wasn't really a factor.
Yeah, I remember growing up, my parents, every night we'd tune in KARE 11, which was our, that was our local NBC station. You know what I mean? And we would watch the news, the local news, and they would talk about what's happening in the world and around the country, but they would talk about Minnesota. They talk about cities where we were, you know,
what the city council's voting on, what the state legislation is voting on.
They do check-ins with local businesses. I mean, it was much more like what's happening around you. Like, you're going to run into this if you leave your house today, and now, I mean, people are getting their news, from like the CNNs, the Fox News, the MSNBCs, like, and there's no local. I don't even know where they are. Well, CNN's in Atlanta. They're notorious for Atlanta, but like, but I don't know where people are even. You know what I mean?
Even like the more like what is pointed to as like a more reasonable source of information are nationalized. Like the New York Times or the Washington Post or the Wall Street Journal. They're all national. Based on the national politics rather than local stuff, unless someone does something just like completely crazy.
Yeah.
then they're not going to get much spotlight.
Yeah. So, I mean, so that's what kind of has nationalized our parties too, then. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, really,
Well, yeah,
right?
because it's become zero sum. Let's a specific example he gives is like the 2016 Supreme Court seat is open.
Yep.
Uh, Justice Scalia dies
Yep.
unexpectedly,
That's right.
and
Yep.
uh, this is a point of
Who was a
contention.
left-leaning
No, he was
judge?
very conservative.
Was he?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. He's famous for having canceled his New York Times, and uh, there was another subscription, I think. But he said he was like, I canceled them because why would I want to wake up angry in the morning? You know what I mean? He was much more on like the Washington Times and
Yeah.
some super conservative. But he was one of the few judges in history where like his prose were like consumed by people.
Yeah.
And he was very like just scathing in his rebukes of
Yep.
some other stuff. But so he passes away, and then McConnell had just won. The Republicans had just won a majority in the Senate in 2014. So here
Yep.
we are with a president from 2012 who had a mandate from the voters
Yeah.
saying to do something, and McConnell had a mandate from 2014 from the voters
Yeah.
saying, "Hey, we want you guys to do stuff." And so the flaw in that is both of them had a mandate, and so who's in control? McConnell had the votes to block him, so why did he not do it? What's the problem with him
hold
doing
on.
it?
So what we're saying is we've got Obama voted in 2012,
Mm-hmm.
national election. This is a
Yeah.
national election of everybody. We put a more left-leaning Democratic president in
Yeah.
the office.
Yeah.
Like that's his ideology, right?
Yeah.
And then we also, like 2 years later, put a conservative-leaning
Majority.
Republican majority in the
Yeah.
Senate.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So
How
like,
did we do that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the issue is that America is the only country in the developed world with that type of presidential system. Every other country has
Yeah.
a form of parliamentary government where the prime minister is, people see the prime minister as the equivalent of a president. He's just the leader of the party that has almost
Yeah.
complete control of governing and passing laws and all that stuff. So there's no off-year election to
In most cases, a prime minister is not a like a referendum across their entire country of who the individual you want.
Yeah.
It's that party, whoever won the party that won the election, then
Yeah.
elects in their own.
He doesn't control like the executive branch. It's
Yeah.
just it's a parliamentary group, and each country has a different form of the separation between that and like a judicial. But
Yeah.
for the most part, like when you go to vote, you're voting for one party or one group of many, and they get to choose who the PM is or the prime minister. So the issue with that is that America, like Germany, we go and win World War II. We've done this with a bunch of different countries where we go and help them write a new constitution, and
we write it just like ours.
Well, we let them write it, but they write it nothing like ours. America's the only place where this is still currently the model. You know what I mean? And so,
our model in the free world, like we talk about bringing freedom all around the world.
Yeah.
When we bring freedom all around the world, we tend to not leave our like government system in place. We leave freedom maybe, but we don't leave how we govern.
We've got the best house. Here's a completely different blueprint on how you should build the best house.
This is the best thing for you guys. It's not what we're doing.
No, we're not. Oh, is this what you guys do? No, absolutely not. Are you crazy?
No. But you guys totally should do this.
But you look back at like the reverence we have for the founding fathers and the Constitution and the founding documents. But like, Scalia was famous for believing that the Constitution was not living and breathing, that it was dead. And the only freedoms that we have is what are the freedoms that the founding fathers knew and thought of when they wrote the document.
Interesting. Yeah.
Which is, I don't know, like Thomas Jefferson was against that completely. He was famous for wanting and I think I mentioned this before, wanting a new constitution every like 19 years or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, so I just don't see that as
well. I mean, and they put in place some sort of system of amendments.
Yeah.
So like, and not only that, but when they rolled out the Constitution, they rolled out amendments almost right away. You know what I mean?
Here's like, 10 things we completely missed.
We're going to add these. Like they set the precedent of if you want to change this, you can change it.
It's like posting your final essay to a professor and then say, "Oh, can I please redo this or add, these last 3 pages that I forgot to add?"
I would say too, with more polarization in our political parties as evidence, but also just more states involved now. The fact that we have 50 now as opposed to what they had then.
Yeah.
The amendment process is harder now, harder now than what it used to. Every year it gets harder to amend the Constitution than it was before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the fact that we had amendments as late as what's our latest amendment was in the 80s.
Let me look.
Early 80s. I'm trying to remember. But yeah, the amendment process keeps getting harder to move a document. To make changes to a document that you said Scalia thought it was dead, right? Dead document. It's just the way it is. Where I don't view it that way. I view it as a living, breathing document.
Yeah, of course.
And it should move with with the changes in our culture. I mean, that makes sense to me. It's not a holy scripture. Yeah, like I've never viewed it as that.
No.
I viewed it as maybe the best idea at the time. You know what I mean?
The best we had to offer.
With the idea that we would continue to make it better. That's how I always viewed it.
Yeah. I don't know. Like it just seems like we have, like we said before, we now have this nationalized polarization where the judicial branch, which is supposed to be nonpartisan, is becoming a place where we are fighting to stay in power or to gain power to get judges through. Like that was Trump's, stranglehold on morally conservative voters was vote for me because I'm going to put in judges that you're going to like, like that was the biggest sell that he could do. Well, he is a playboy and he's had 3 wives and he's, a terrible person, says the dumbest stuff, tweets too much, super vain, but we could get some conservative judges.
Yeah. And that was a huge push. I mean, that was a huge reason why he got elected.
But ultimately, that's kind of not been the case. I know in this book that was released at the end of last year or in the middle of last year, I can't remember the date, but, it was very much hey, I think in this chapter he says that Justice Kennedy might have been the only one who voted against, the policies that the president that nominated him went for. Yep. But, you look at Gorsuch and the leader of the Supreme Court right now is Justice Roberts, and they went against some conservative ideas in this last Supreme Court session. I think Mike Pence even went so far as to call Justice Roberts a disappointment in an interview that I saw of him recently.
Well, and that's just the what is a justice and what does our Supreme Court do? You know what I mean? Like my understanding of it is that we make laws, we pass laws, we have the arm of the government that is the judiciary. They're supposed to keep us honest to what we agreed to. Yeah. Like this is what we agreed to. 2 different opinions on what the definitions of what we agreed to are. Yeah. The Justice Department, this judiciary helps us figure out where that line was or what was the agreement on it, and just said, this is how it is. Like that's their role is to settle disputes,
to settle disputes and to, if a party that's kind of out of control in a local state passes something that's just, unconstitutional, they can strike it down. That's what they did with the the Louisiana abortion law that came out this year. Well, last year, but they struck it down this year. I'm pretty sure that they will strike down the bill that Governor Lee of Tennessee just signed into law.
Yeah, tell me about that one.
Making making camping on state grounds a federal crime or a felony. I'm sorry, and like
camping.
Yeah.
What about a state park? Like,
I don't know. Like,
me and my family are at a state park, and now I've got a felony on my record.
If you're gonna camp there, don't bring a tent. I mean, like, these guys.
It's a pushback against protesters in Nashville, I'd assume. That's what. This is a knee jerk.
2 months of it. Yeah, it's absolutely a knee jerk. Like, it wasn't thought through. There's just zero compassion in it. There's zero, like, compromising leadership in this bill. It's just, hey, I don't want to talk to you because I'm in over my head, and I don't know what to say to you. So I'm just going to make it illegal, and I'm going to walk past you every day and not speak to you. And I'm going to talk a big game about listening to Black voices, but I'm not going to listen to the voice of the populace.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
See, you think this one will be contested and then also struck down?
ACLU said they're coming after it, and I just don't see where it.
I don't think it holds.
That's your First Amendment right, is to peacefully assemble. And so if they're peacefully assembling, then a sit-in, a camp out, like that just, if it's
and that's the whole thing. Like, I can't peacefully assemble inside Walmart freely. They can get rid of me because they own that ground, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But the only freedom, if you're going to give me a freedom of peacefully assembling, you have to provide me a little bit with ground with that. And that's always traditionally been state or city property or national property, right? I mean, that's kind of like if I want, we see it all the time in Cookeville when there's like a protest or when there's some sort of like a, that might be the National Day of Prayer or whatever they do. They do it on the courthouse lawn.
Yeah.
Because it's like state property. It's like we're allowed to assemble here.
It's government property. It's paid for by the taxpayer. Now, he does put language in there saying, if they're blocking off emergency vehicles or something like that, then but that's not been the case. I don't think. I've been watching it pretty closely, and it's just there. At one point, there were some destructions happening at the very beginning when like some of the tensions were extremely high. And from the most part, from what I've been able to see, that's not, those guys have been long gone if they were even part of the movement.
This is the issue with it. What he's doing is he's making it a felony to do something that was already illegal to do and could be enforced by police. If you're destroying property, a police officer can come and arrest you and charge you with something that's not a felony. But they, or could be. It depends on how much money the destruction is. But like they can charge you with something that's not a felony and you go through. This is basically ramping up. It's doing to this what like hate crime law has done to charges. It's like ramped it up and said, hey, it's a worse offense because of
and I think to try to get, popular support is to, this leftist mob verbiage that is on every Republican, most Republican running right now is they've got that in some ad that they're running. So they're putting that sort of language in the law to get support saying, you don't want destruction, right? Oh, of course not. Yeah, this is a good law. But then you look at, stoking fear so that they focus on that and don't see people aren't allowed to peacefully assemble and protest against government and their leaders. Like that's what this whole idea of America is built on.
So tell me about, so let's say there's Black Lives Matter, or let's just say left-leaning. Let's not attach them to a specific movement, but left-leaning people congregating on the state Capitol lawn, and they get they're destroying grass, so they get charged with a felony.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, who's discretion
like where do you
is
draw?
this?
Where are you drawing that line? So they get charged with a felony. They get the felony. How does that come election day? What does that do to a person? Well,
you lose your right to vote. So they're just strengthening. It's kind of like the war on drugs. Nixon's I forget his name right now, but he did an article, an interview years after the Nixon administration was over, and they said, hey, of course, the war on drugs was targeting, we made weed and crack illegal and a huge felony. And guess who were the biggest, users of that were the anti-war movement, the hippies, as they like to call them, and the black community. So we got to take them off the voter rolls. Just strengthening our own. And those are the guys who are politically engaged and would, be there on election day voting en masse. And they're like, well, we just got rid of them. So the people who are showing up to protest, of course, they're going to be there on election day. Or they have a higher likelihood of being
If we
there.
can't win your vote, then we'll try to take it from you.
Exactly. I mean, it's just voter suppression 101.
And the idea of voter suppression for me, until the last 2 years, I've always thought, well, that's just garbage. If someone wants to vote, they vote. Which is easy for me to say as a white male in America.
Well, but
if you want to vote, you vote. And so in the last 2 years, my eyes have really been open to like voter suppression is a real, not only thing that happens on accident. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a strategy.
It's a strategy that makes it look.
Vote is a strategy.
It makes it look like it's by accident. You know what I mean? Like, we accidentally deleted your name off the roll, so you can't vote.
Yeah.
So,
if you wouldn't have, like, putting blame back on the person. Yeah. But really, there was some, like with Bill Lee's law, there was corruption behind putting something in place that would cause you, a decision you were already making now.
These guys aren't stupid.
They're not.
And these things are supposed to be a little sly to push it past the gullible or the easily scared to just ignore it. And like you said, if you wouldn't have broke the law, you'd be fine. But what happens when those laws, policies are racist or are sexist or, you know what I mean? Like, it's just in the last 50 years that, black women have had the right to vote through the Civil Rights Acts. Not on the books they had the right to vote, but policy-wise, there were so many deterrents that they effectively did not have the right to vote. And we can dig into that a little bit more later. But that becomes the issue and the role after all this happens because of hyper-polarized parties that believe that every 2 years they have the chance to flip control. And so you're always attacking. Ezra points out that historically, you could look at the presidents changing, the parties coming into the presidential, the executive branch as showing like that the parties have shifted over time, but or the parties in power have shifted. But largely, like Republican rule was from the late 19th to the early 20th century. It was largely them. It didn't change much. Right after the Great Depression, people saw it as a Republican failure, so Democrats took over for quite a long time, up until after the 60s, after Lyndon B. Johnson. And then, more towards the 80s and the 90s, it became like a hyper-partisan, like you would even see, like they went back and looked at some New York Times articles, and like 1920, before the mid 20th century, there was like maybe 2 or 3 articles talking about like the party in power switching between an election. And now it's like they're pumping those out monthly. You know what I mean? Right now, that's every article you see is this seat might flip or this seat might flip. And that means that the Republicans have control. And he points out a pretty good analogy. Imagine that you are working for a boss that you think is a jerk and you just absolutely hate him. And he asks you to do something. If you do it, it's going to look good on him and he's going to probably get a promotion. If you don't do it, he gets fired and you get to be the boss. So, like, what do you think is going to happen? That's basically our politics right now. And you can add in more that if you do what he says, then the other bosses are going to look at you poorly, or you've got a bunch of people saying, hey, we hate it too. Or you think that the things he's trying to do is going to damage the company or the country or whatever. Like, there's so many more factors involved in that too. But like, it's just this like cutthroat.
Overall though.
Obstruction.
Yeah, overall, the other person failing is better than them succeeding, even if it's a win, or could be a win for you as well.
For the politician, but for
Yeah.
the country, it is
It's
like
terrible.
it's terrible.
Yeah.
He pointed to, shutdowns are more common right now. Government shutdowns.
Yeah. Yep. We have.
You see that all the time. Donald Trump shut down the government because his own majority in the Senate and the House wouldn't fund his wall, So he shuts it down, and he's not the only one who has shut down the country, but it happens almost regularly now.
Yep.
It leads to economic troubles here at home, and there's also worldwide impacts because a lot of these markets are based off the U.S. economy.
Yeah.
And so the long-term result of that, what does that look like? Do we become ostracized from the global markets? Like, do they see us as unreliable?
Yeah.
Like, it just seems like this is unsustainable. And the focus of this chapter is that this is not normal. Like, this is new. This is new within the last, 30 years or so.
Yeah.
30 or 40 years.
Well, and I think it's interesting. You had posted in our Discord. You had posted an interview between, I think it was you. Maybe it was me that posted it. It was it was me actually. It was Ben Shapiro and
oh gosh, yeah,
and Ezra Klein talking. Which it was, you say, oh gosh, it was good. I thought it was good.
Shapiro was drinking out of a mug that had leftist tears on it. Like,
it was
very showy.
He gives the mug that the guest gets to use is is offensive if you're more left.
Yeah.
The mug he gives you is offensive that you have to drink out of.
Yeah.
But anyway, but in the interview he was talking about it, and Ezra points out, he's like, a lot of people have grabbed my book and they've read through it and they're like, oh, we're polarized now and we never have been. And he's like, let me just reiterate, as a country, yes, we have been polarized forever.
Yeah.
The problem is that now our parties are polarized from each other.
We're sorted and polarized. Yeah.
Sorted and polarized. Yeah. That's the issue we're dealing with. That's the big deal. Don't get me wrong.
No.
This stuff, us disagreeing on things, has always happened.
We had a civil war.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of one of those things that you don't want to walk away from this book thinking, oh, like you're saying this is new and this is new. This piece is new. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
But we don't want to walk away from the book thinking that having different views with other people in America is new. That's not new.
No.
The problem is how it's dealt with now with polarized parties.
Yeah.
Doesn't fix anything.
Well, I think especially this chapter is showing the nationalized polarization that wasn't there before.
It wasn't there.
And it's manifesting in itself in obstruction from the party not in power so that they can get in power. Yep. And for what goal? Just to stay in power, and then the I don't know, man. It's crazy. Like, this chapter more than any other has made me very depressed at the state of America.
And can we talk about this really quick? I'm looking at for those of you listening, Curtis goes through and makes notes of the book and sends them to me, and I don't make any notes at all, and I normally just camp off of his. But you have a statement in your notes here that says, and I want people to hear this, and then you to explain it a little bit for me. Earmarks are made illegal.
Yeah.
Getting rid of compromises. Can you talk about that a little bit?
That's pretty new too.
Yeah.
It's kind of the idea of transactional politics. And I'm glad you brought it up because this is how it used to be instead of nationalized parties playing out in politics. Used to, like a Republican from Oklahoma would sign on to a Democratic bill or from the Democrats, but then he'd earmark of this $2 billion project, I want $100,000 for a bridge that we need or a school or a hospital that this community needs. And they were made illegal because they called it corruption. But when you take out that earmark, you're de-incentivizing any sort of compromise.
You've taken out all the compromises.
You've taken out transactional politics, and instead you've brought in ideologies at war with each other.
This is the thing. Before this book, before our conversations on this, I thought earmarks were a horrible thing. Pork barrel earmarks. I think that's John McCain's words, and Sarah Palin's words. I think that's what we got to cut out these pork barrel earmarks. Like people are just sticking stuff on there. But the problem is like they honestly, like, I really feel they made it like a campaigning what they used personally to compromise on things.
Yeah.
They were throwing under the bus in order to win votes.
Yeah. No, that's all it was.
And all of them weren't good. And there probably was a lot of wasteful spending in them because of them, right? Yeah. But it did allow more conversation and less things like filibusters and
also it could be like I'm a Republican from Tennessee, but I signed this Democratic bill, and when you get pushed on it by your constituents, you can be like, hey, I brought you guys 5 new hospitals across
because of this.
Because of this. This is what I got out of it.
I
made Tennessee better because of this. Yeah, it's a national bill, but as a statesman, I've made it better. And that was the compromise. So instead of transactional, you've turned politics into a holy war where, it's my God is bigger than your God, or my ideology is bigger than yours, and we're going to fight it out.
And this is what makes me mad, Curtis, because
and not give any ground.
This is what makes me mad, because when I vote for a politician here in Tennessee to represent me in the House of Representatives in Washington, okay, when I'm voting for him, I want him to represent me. Yeah. I don't want him to represent a national ideology.
A party.
I don't care. I don't care what Republicans in Oklahoma think. Yeah. I don't care what conservatives in Oklahoma think. I don't care what liberals in Oklahoma thinks. I want him to represent me and the people that I live around. Mm-hmm. That's what I want.
Yeah.
And so, or she. And so that's what I want. And I totally saved it there. Totally saved it. Redeemed myself. Or I don't know. I don't know how to do the non-binary. But anyway, I've really dug a hole now. But no, I really think I want them to represent me, but they don't anymore because we've taken away all their opportunities.
You've taken away the ability to build coalitions. Used to it was, the Southern, Southern Dudes Club of coalition in the Republican Party. It's like, they are technically Republican and get our funding, but if you don't meet their needs, then they're not going to sign on to the bill. I think one of the coalitions you see forming right now that gets a lot of attention is the squad of Ilhan Omar and AOC and Tlaib, and that is as scandalous as that may seem in national media. That's what the country was that's kind of what worked for us in the past, was these different coalitions doing transactional politics. So I don't know what that looks like now. Like, once that's gone, do we just bring earmarks back? Because obviously they're just as susceptible to be removed as they were then. So maybe we need something better in place. Yeah.
No, I'm with you. I hate that we're losing local identity in some of these.
Well, you've got poor states representatives voting against like the ACA when it's going to be federally funded.
Yeah.
And I think it was Nebraska's governor was telling his senator to vote against it and say, now it's a matter of principle. We don't want federal money. And it's like, okay, but your people would benefit greatly from this money.
Yeah.
So why don't you do it?
Yeah. These national arguments are not making us, they're not helping us out in the local.
No, not at all.
On the local level at all.
It's just concentrating wealth into these big cities that have always paid for, the rural areas, through subsidies and whatnot. And you're just creating that divide into like a canyon,
Yeah. So this chapter was good. It was it was one of those, like, it made me a little bit angry, and also, you know what I mean, but gave me some clarity on some things.
It's eye-opening.
For sure. It is eye-opening for sure. And so If you're out there and you're with us on this, and you haven't read this book, read the book. But if you haven't read this chapter, or maybe you did and you just don't recall it, go back and read this one. This one's full of stuff that's good.
This is like the equivalent of like an X-ray. I see exactly where the bone has broken.
Yeah.
This is where we need to focus our efforts.
Yeah.
He ends it talking about the filibuster and just how stupid it is. It never was supposed to be there. There was a previous question motion that Hamilton, no, not him, Burr had just killed Alexander Hamilton in a duel. He comes in and is like, this place is great, but the rules are a mess. And it's like, well, yeah, they kind of are. The whole place is a mess. You just killed a guy.
You just killed a man. So,
and you're now addressing the Senate, so not in jail. But it made it impossible to cut off debates. And as controversial as Medicare was, there was no filibuster. Now if you bring anything up, they're just going to filibuster it. To block. That's kind of how McConnell has gotten away with not passing or not even voting on anything. They can just filibuster the motion to request a vote, or I don't know exactly how that works, but it's just almost like not worth fighting for either party fighting to bring it to a vote, because it can just get knocked down.
And what a filibuster does is it allows you to not have to compromise. You can just well, the
filibusters are a big proponent of the shutdowns. I can just filibuster voting on this debt ceiling increase or whatever it looks like. So it seems like that role might need to go more than the earmarks did. That was Obama just came out talking about that one at John Lewis's funeral. He was saying that it was, and it was historically the most it's been used is to block anti-lynching laws. So it's kind of become a racist. Well, it was a racist weapon, and now it's just for obstruction. So at no point has it ever been useful.
I've never heard a filibuster talked about in a positive way. But I've heard Republicans and Democrats both talk poorly about it, and I've seen them both use it. So you know what I mean?
It's kind of like one of those. Well, if they're going to use it, I'm going to use it.
I mean, if we're doing,
it seems like a very petty tool. I think it might be. Might
be time.
It served its purpose that was never actually put in place.
Somebody will probably filibuster getting rid of it, though. So.
Probably.
Well, all right. So I think we're wrapping up.
I think so.
What should we leave the people with here?
We're wrapping up next week. It's the recommendation of, it's kind of breaking down the parties on how they're different, because they are, and how do we fix this, or how do we crawl out of the hole we're in right now? I'm excited to revisit this chapter because, like Luke has mentioned, when I was reading this book before, I was really on fire about what he was saying and suggesting things, and after some time, it's become a little blurry. So I've purposefully not read ahead on these two chapters to give some like good, real reaction to it on this next episode. So check that out. That'll be next week. We'll be in September.
We're going to wrap up the book this next week. And then after that, too, we're going to do some our episodes are going to be we're going to look at a few different, I don't know, issues or things going on. We're not going to jump right into a book right away.
No. Probably we'll hold off on that till after the election.
Yep, that's the plan. So, but we do, Curtis, I'm putting you on the spot here. Do you know how to direct people to our Discord?
We'll have a link in the YouTube description.
Okay, we'll have it in the description here on YouTube, and then hopefully, if you're listening to our podcast, hopefully you'll navigate over there to find it. If you go to begoodpeopleshow.com, that takes you to our YouTube page right now, I believe, or a splash page or something. But you can find the information there if you listen to us. But Discord's a great opportunity for you to jump into the conversation in a more interactive way than just comment threads give us on these posts.
We post some articles throughout the week that we've read and are worth sharing. And
Yeah.
hopefully it's better than, sharing it on Facebook for someone either to get pissed about it or to like
Yeah.
it. But for some like discussion on it. So, I mean, if you want to engage in that, I think it's open for sharing to anyone at this point. Of course, it's modded, but for honest discussion, it's there as a tool for people looking for some more in-depth engagement.
Yep. That's great.
Well, cool. Hopefully this episode hasn't brought you down as much as it has opened some eyes. Ezra's got a lot, as always, has a lot of data to back up the claims we've made and have kind of reviewed. So grab the book and check it out, and you can close it out with us next week.
Yep. Well, Curtis, thank you for the conversation as always.
You too, man.
All right.
See ya.
Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed the discussion here, and if you did, go ahead and click that like button. That helps us out. Also, if you're not a subscriber, you should be. If you subscribe and hit the bell, then you get a notification every time we post new content. That way you can stay up on all the discussions we're having. If this conversation resonated with you, maybe share it with a friend over on social media. And also, we've got some other videos, so feel free to check those out and join in anywhere.